I never thought I'd find myself on a relationship advice subreddit spilling out my mess like this. But here I am because I need to tell someone what I've just been through, something so gut-wrenching that it still feels like a punch in the stomach every time I think about it. It started about 6 months ago. My wife Lisa and I had been together for over 10 years. We built a life, good jobs, a house in the suburbs, a dog that's now more hair than pet. We had plans, dreams, a future. Or so I thought. She was the one I trusted to the core. We'd been through thick and thin. I knew her inside out, or so I believed. She always talked about how she wanted to build a family, how we'd grow old together, how she loved me. That's what made what I found so crushing even harder to swallow, because I believed every word. We were solid, or so I thought. Things started to feel a little off around a month ago. She'd be secretive about her phone, always making sure I didn't see what she was typing. I'd catch her glancing over her shoulder when she thought I wasn't looking. Little things. Nothing concrete, just enough to make me suspicious. But I told myself I was paranoid. She was stressed with work, maybe I was imagining it. Then the night before last, she left her phone on the kitchen table while she went to the bathroom. Classic mistake. I saw a notification pop up. Her best friend Jenny had sent her a message. I didn't mean to look, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a picture of Lisa leaning into someone. I couldn't see his face clearly, just the side of her head and her lips pressed against his cheek. The caption was "Miss you already." My stomach sank. My hands went cold. I stared at that message like a punch to the chest. I felt dizzy, like the world was tilting. I knew I shouldn't jump to conclusions, but I also knew I had to see more. I unlocked her phone, trembling. There were more texts, flirty, intimate, downright inappropriate. And then I saw it. A screenshot of a hotel booking with the name of a place I didn't recognize, scheduled for tonight. I felt my jaw tighten. My palms were sweaty. How the hell could I have been so blind? I'd trusted her completely. She convinced me we were building a life, that she was all in. And now I find out she's been sneaking around, lying right in front of me. I couldn't absorb it all at once. I just stared at her phone, the evidence burning in my hand. My head started to spin as the reality sank in. She'd been cheating on me with her college ex, the guy she used to talk about, how they kept in touch over the years, how they still cared. And I never saw the signs, never felt a thing. How could I have been so blind? The next morning I was a mess. I kept replaying everything, the way she'd laughed at dinner, the way she'd brushed my hand away when I tried to hold her. My stomach twisted. I felt betrayed, furious, and utterly empty. I had no idea how I was going to confront her or what I'd say. Part of me wanted to grab her phone and throw it across the room. Part of me just wanted to leave and never look back. But I knew I had to plan. This wasn't just some petty fight. This was the end of the life I'd built on trust. And deep down, I already knew I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. I just had no idea what that fight was going to look like yet. So I sat there, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together what to do next. I was sick of feeling like a fool. I wanted justice. Or at least, I wanted her to finally realize I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. I had enough of the lies, enough of the pretending everything was fine, and I knew this was only the beginning. I spent the rest of that day in a fog. My mind kept circling back to the evidence, to her smile, to the feeling I'd had that something was off but ignored because I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't escape the sting of betrayal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her lips pressed against that guy's cheek. The way she'd looked at him in the photo, soft, intimate, like there was no one else in the world but them. I couldn't stay quiet. I had to know more. I needed certainty, so I did what I'd never done before. I looked through her phone more thoroughly. It was like peeling back layers of a lie she'd carefully crafted. Texts, photos, even voice messages. Fed by rage and heartbreak, I devoured everything. What I found was worse than I expected. They'd been sneaking around for months, secret meetings, late-night calls, a string of lies I'd never suspected. There were pictures of her and him in bed, snapshots of their stolen moments in hotel rooms, and plenty of explicit messages. The worst part, the way she described him, how he still made her feel alive, how she'd always wondered what it would feel like to be with him again. I clenched my fists so tight my nails cut into my palms. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed a stone. My head was pounding, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. My mind kept flashing to her, so close to me, acting normal while behind my back she was with her ex. I needed a plan. I couldn't just confront her without a strategy. If I did it right, I could catch her off guard, get everything out in the open, and finally end this nightmare. I started laying out options, weighing my choices. I could explode, rip everything apart and risk making a scene, maybe even ruin her reputation. Or I could be cold, calculated, and catch her in the act, then just walk away with my dignity intact. But there was a third option I liked better, something that would give me the revenge I craved without making a spectacle. I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal like I did, long-lasting, personal, and undeniable. It had to be perfect. I wanted her to see that I knew that I wasn't some naive fool who got played. Late that night, I sat in the dark, the screen of my laptop glowing in the silence. I knew how I would do it. I had a plan. It was simple but effective. I'd make her think I didn't suspect a thing. I'd pretend I was okay, but I'd carefully set the trap. I'd send her a message, something casual, just enough to keep her talking. Then I'd record her, catch her in the act, and turn her own lies against her. I needed her to confess. I needed her to see that I knew everything. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. Not this time. She thought she could cheat and hide, but I'd make sure she paid. The next step was to find a way to lure her into the trap. I'd already gotten a hotel room close to our house under a false name, so I'd be able to record her without her knowing. I'd wait until she headed out for her errands, then slip into the room, place a hidden camera, and wait. It was risky, sure, but I was done playing nice. I wanted her to see what I was capable of when pushed. I wanted her to realize her betrayal had consequences. And once she slipped up, I would have everything: proof, her words, her shame. And after that, there was only one thing left: the end of this nightmare. I kept telling myself I wasn't doing this out of spite alone. It was about dignity, about respect. I deserved the truth, and I was through pretending I didn't see the signs. I'd been blind, but now I saw everything clearly. I checked my phone one last time before I went to bed. A message from her would be the trigger. I knew she'd try to contact me once she suspected I knew something. I was ready. I just had to wait for the right moment. And as I lay there, the cold pillow against my cheek, I felt a strange mixture of anger and relief. I was finally taking control. Whatever happened next, I knew it would change everything. The waiting game was the worst part. Every hour felt like an eternity. I kept checking my phone, expecting her to text or call, but nothing came. I told myself to stay calm, to keep my head clear. Still, my stomach kept twisting into knots, and I could feel the heat of my palms, sweaty and clammy. I was on edge, knowing that any moment could shift everything. It was past midnight when I saw her message pop up, just a simple, casual text. Running some errands, be back later. She didn't sound suspicious, just her usual tone, but I knew better. I knew she was lying. She was leaving the house to meet him. As soon as I saw that message, I moved fast. I grabbed my bag, slipped it over my shoulder, and headed out. I'd already set everything up, camera hidden in the hotel room, a way to record her. I was nervous but also numb, like I'd somehow stepped outside myself and was watching from a distance. The hotel wasn't far, just a quick drive. I parked a block away, in case she decided to follow me or something. Then I slipped into the room, dark and empty except for the camera I'd placed behind a painting. I sat in the corner, stiff as a board, waiting. Minutes felt like hours. Every sound outside the door made my heart jump. I kept telling myself to breathe, to stay focused. Then I heard her keys in the lock. She opened the door slowly, almost cautiously, and stepped inside. She looked around first, as if checking to see if anyone was watching. Then she moved toward the bed, and I saw her. She was wearing the same outfit she'd worn that day, her favorite blouse, tight jeans. Her hair was a little tousled, a little more relaxed than usual. And her face was flushed, like she'd been running or maybe just excited. I held my breath. I wanted to yell at her, to scream, but I stayed silent. Instead, I pressed the record button and watched her. Her lips parted as she took in the room, then she pulled out her phone. I could see her messaging, probably him, telling him she was there. Then she sat on the bed, took a deep breath, and looked right into the camera, my hidden camera, like she knew she was being watched but didn't care. She pulled out a small box from her purse, a gift, I guessed. She carefully opened it, revealing a tiny necklace, and slipped it around her neck. She looked at herself in a mirror, adjusting it, smiling softly. That's when I saw her pick up her phone again and start recording herself. Just a quick selfie, a little smile, then she leaned back, relaxed. Her hands went to her face, and she whispered something I couldn't hear but could see her saying, "I miss you." My stomach clenched. The proof was right there. She was with him, reconnecting, rehashing a past they'd both tried to bury. I saw enough. My fists clenched so tight I thought my nails might draw blood. I stayed still, watching her go through the motions, waiting for her to slip up. I knew she thought she was just having a little secret rendezvous, just a fling, a moment of escaped longing, but I saw everything, and I knew I had what I needed. When she finally grabbed her coat to leave, I stayed in the shadows, heart pounding so hard I felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. She didn't look at the camera. She didn't suspect a thing. And I realized in that moment that I had the power. I had her. As she stepped out, I followed her silently, watching her walk to her car. That's when I made my move. I pulled out my phone to record her again, this time to catch her in the act of leaving. I wanted her to see I'd been watching the whole time. I wanted her to know I had control now. The worst part, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sickening despair. I'd finally uncovered her secret, yes, but at what cost? Still, I told myself, this was the end of her lies. I was done being the fool. I was done pretending I didn't know, and now I had everything on tape. Next, I planned my next steps carefully. I wasn't going to confront her yet. No, I was going to let her believe she'd slipped away, that she'd gotten what she wanted. But I knew the truth was out, and I was ready to use it. The question was, what would she do when she found out I caught her? The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a train. My mind was a jumble of adrenaline, anger, and a weird sense of relief, like I finally had a weapon, a way to hit back. I watched the videos I'd recorded over coffee, the sharp clarity of her face, the way she touched her hair, the subtle nervousness in her eyes. There was no denying it anymore. She was with him, and I had the proof. But I wasn't about to rush into anything stupid. I needed to control the narrative, set the stage for what was coming next. I sat at my desk and drafted a text. Just something simple, casual, almost nonchalant. "Hey, I know what's been going on. We need to talk today." I knew. She'd see it when she got home. That's when the real game would start. While I waited, I prepared myself mentally. I cleaned up the house, pretending everything was normal. I made her favorite coffee, set the table, even bought a nice bottle of wine. I wanted her to come home thinking I was fine, calm, collected, and ready to listen. But inside, I was fuming. This was the calm before the storm. She arrived around 5, looking tired but still trying to act like everything was normal. I could smell her perfume, sweet but with a hint of nervousness. Her eyes flicked to the phone I left on the table, probably expecting a fight. I kept my face neutral, like I didn't have a care in the world. She sat down, took a deep breath, and finally looked at me. "Hey," she said softly. I looked at her, my heartbeat pounding. "We need to talk," I said calmly. "I saw the messages, the videos, everything, and I want to know what the hell is going on." Her face paled slightly, but she tried to shrug it off. "You're overreacting. I don't know what you saw." "No, I said, voice steady but cold. "You're not going to deny it anymore. I have the proof, the videos, the screenshots, you with him, the hotel bookings, all of it." Her eyes flickered with guilt, but she still tried to maintain her composure. "It's not what it looks like. I was confused. I didn't mean for it to happen." "You didn't mean for it to happen," I scoffed. "You've been sneaking around for months, Lisa. You lied to me, made me believe we were building a family while you were planning your reunion with your college ex." She looked down, her hands trembling. "I was weak. I didn't want to hurt you. I was just trying to figure things out." "Figuring things out," I snapped. "You were planning a secret rendezvous behind my back while I was at work, thinking everything was fine. And you think I'm just going to forgive that?" She looked like she wanted to say something, but no words came. Instead, she looked away, tears welling up. That's when I knew I had to do more than just confront her. I had to make her understand she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from. "I've got something for you," I said, reaching into my bag. I pulled out the videos on my phone, showing her the footage of her in the hotel room, the intimate smiles, the whispering into her phone, her looking directly at the camera like she knew I was watching. How long has this been going on? How many times have you lied? Her shoulders sagged and she finally looked at me, eyes red. I don't know what I was thinking. I felt lost. And he made me feel alive again. Yeah, well, I hope he made you feel alive, I said sharply, because I'm done. Done pretending I don't know, done pretending I don't feel like I've been punched in the gut every single day. The room was heavy with silence. She looked shattered, but I felt nothing but cold resolve. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I was no fool. I'd planned this carefully. I'd taken control, and I was finally ready to take the next step. I told her to pack her things. I wanted her out of the house that night. She hesitated, tears falling now, voice trembling. Please, can't we talk about this? No, I said, voice firm. There's nothing left to say. This is over. You made your choice. Now you're going to live with it. She looked at me with pleading eyes, but I didn't flinch. I knew I had to be decisive. This wasn't about revenge alone. It was about reclaiming my life. I handed her a folder with copies of the evidence, told her to leave, and watched as she gathered her things, her face streaked with tears. When she finally stepped out, shutting the door behind her, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. It was done. The betrayal was out in the open, and I had finally taken back control. I stood there in the silence of the now empty house, feeling the weight lift just a little. I'd done it. The game was over, and I knew, with or without her, that I'd be okay. Because now I'd finally start rebuilding from the ashes. After she left, I stood in the doorway for a long moment, just staring at the empty space she'd occupied. The house suddenly felt too quiet, like the walls were echoing her absence. I could still see her in my mind, her face stained with tears, trying to hold herself together, pleading for more time. But I knew better. I knew I couldn't go back. Not after what I'd seen, what I'd uncovered. I sat down on the couch, feeling the coldness of the leather bite into my skin. 1,000 thoughts spun through my head, what I should do next, how I should move on. But mostly, I kept replaying that footage, her smile, the way she looked at him like he was her whole world again. That image burned into my mind, fueling my anger and my resolve. I knew I couldn't keep everything bottled up. I had to let it out somehow. I reached for my phone and drafted a message. A simple, straightforward text: "It's over, don't try to contact me anymore." I hesitated, then pressed send. That was it. No more games, no more pretending, just raw truth. The days that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the ache. But every night I'd lie awake, the house silent except for the sound of my own breathing. I kept thinking about what I'd done, how I'd finally taken control, how I'd seen through her lies. It was a small victory, but it felt huge. Then came the calls. First from her, begging me to talk, to listen. I ignored everything. Next from her friends, asking what happened. I told them nothing but the truth. She cheated, she lied, she betrayed us both. That was enough for me. I didn't want to get into a messy explanation. I just wanted her to know I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. One particular afternoon, I got an email from Jenny, her best friend. I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me open it. There attached was a new video, more footage, this time of her and him meeting at a cafe, her laughing, him kissing her cheek. It was more than I'd expected. It confirmed everything. She'd been lying for months. That night I sat back and thought about my revenge. I'd watched her, recorded her, proved she was the cheater. But what now? How do I go from feeling like a victim to taking back my life? I realized I needed to do something permanent. Something that would make her regret the day she ever betrayed me. That's when I decided to change the game entirely. I wasn't just going to walk away, no, I wanted her to feel the pain of losing everything she thought she had. The plan was simple, cruelly effective. I'd get rid of her stuff, her clothes, her jewelry, the little things she'd left behind. Not out of anger, but as a message. A final goodbye. I'd hand over the keys to the house, start the process of divorce, and make sure she knew she'd burned her bridges with me. I also contacted a lawyer. I wanted everything sealed, everything done by the book. I wasn't going to leave any loose ends. I also made a copy of all the evidence, videos, texts, photos, and stored them securely. I needed to be prepared for whatever she tried next. Finally, I sent her one last message. Don't come back. This chapter is closed. No anger, just cold finality. I was done playing the victim. I was taking control of the story now. That night I sat in the dark with a glass of whiskey, feeling the weight of everything I'd been through. It was a bitter taste, but also strangely freeing. I'd finally faced the betrayal, confronted her, and taken back my power. And I knew one thing: no matter how much it hurt, I'd come out of this stronger. Next step: I was ready to file the papers, hand over the keys, and rebuild. Because sometimes the only way to heal is to tear everything down first, then start from scratch. The day I handed over the keys was the day I truly started to feel like I was reclaiming my life. I went to her apartment, packed up the last of her belongings, and left the place that had once been our sanctuary but was now just a shell of betrayal. I placed everything into boxes, took a deep breath, and told myself this was the end of her chapter, my new beginning. I handed over the keys to her landlord with a cold, final look in my eyes. No words needed to be exchanged. The house, the memories, the life we built, they were gone. I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness as I watched her walk away, her face a ghost of the woman I once loved. That moment, I knew, was the last time I would ever look back. Later that week, I filed for divorce. I made sure every document was bulletproof, every detail precise. I didn't want her to have any power over me. I wanted to cut the cord cleanly, with no room left for her to manipulate or lie her way back in. When I handed the papers to my lawyer, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, like I had finally taken control of the chaos she left behind. I also took the evidence with me: copies of the videos, the texts, everything that proved her infidelity. I stored them in a safe place just in case I needed them someday. I didn't trust that she wouldn't try to turn things around or make accusations. But I knew I had done everything by the book: no shortcuts, no revenge schemes that could backfire. In the days that followed, I started focusing on myself. I threw myself into work, into my hobbies, into reconnecting with friends I'd neglected. Little by little, the pain eased. The guilt, the anger, they didn't disappear overnight, but they became manageable. I wasn't avoiding my feelings anymore. I was facing them head on. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking about that video, about her face when she thought she was so clever, and I'd smile bitterly knowing I'd finally got the last laugh. The truth was out and she couldn't spin her way out of it. I'd exposed her, and that's what mattered. Looking back, I realize how much I let myself be blind for so long. I ignored the signs, justified her lies, convinced myself we were solid. But the betrayal broke through all of that. It showed me that sometimes you have to rip everything apart to see what's truly broken. My advice: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you want to believe in fairy tales. When the evidence piles up, face it. Confront your partner, gather proof if needed, and then cut the cord cleanly. Revenge might feel satisfying in the moment, but ultimately, reclaiming your life and dignity is the real victory. I'll never forget the pain, but I also won't forget how I took control of my story. If you're in a similar situation, know this: you're stronger than you think. Sometimes, the only way forward is to walk away from everything that no longer serves you. And that's exactly what I did.